It's time now for Countywide, a special presentation of Yavapai Broadcasting News. Join Paul David and Jen Cohen as they talk with our community's leaders, newsmakers, and people in the know. You'll hear about the hot topics that affect all our lives in Yavapai County. And now, here's today's Countywide.
Welcome to Countywide. I'm Paul David. As always, it's great to have you in studio today. We're going to be talking about arson investigation with Central Yavapai Fire Marshal Rick Chase. Welcome back.
Well, thank you, Paul. It's good to be back.
Always good to see you. We've got a couple of things to remind you of on the table. First and foremost, smoke alarms.
Always.
Carbon monoxide detectors, and they've got the combos, right? Carbon and smoke?
They do have combos,
yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So that's probably the best thing to get then, right?
Combo's not bad because then you get, kill two birds with one stone, basically.
Right.
So yeah, and basically the carbon monoxide detectors they're only necessary if you have some kind of a fuel burning appliance. So even if you have a fireplace.
Like I got a wood stove, okay, fireplace,
Yep.
Anything that burns fuel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, you got it. Propane, natural gas, wood, anything like that. It's really necessary to have a carbon monoxide detector.
God, and now's that time of year too, because now we're batting down the hatches.
Yep.
Here comes winter. We've already had a little bit of a taste of it. So windows are getting shut down, doors are getting closed. You get all that, the windows cocked and the ceiling around the door frames and stuff like that, so nice and tight. So, yeah, carbon monoxide is your silent killer, so you want to make sure you have something that's going to detect that, otherwise you're just not going to wake up one morning possibly.
Colorless, odorless, and you don't know it's there. So,
we've had a few scares with that over the years, haven't we?
Yeah, and we've had families that have called up and they're dizzy and somebody has actually gotten up out of bed, which is good because sometimes the people are sleeping and they don't have any way to, anything to alert them to wake up. That's how people die in their sleep from it. And so, yeah, it's a very sad situation. So any kind of appliance like that, have a carbon monoxide detector.
Okay, and then if you got those, get the carbon monoxide smoke detectors. And it's kind of off track of what we were going to get into right away today, but I see them sitting here and I'm thinking about my house, and I can see one in the room that I spend some time in, and I don't know that I see one in my living room. I don't see one in my kitchen.
Yeah.
The thing is the things go off. Any little bit of smoke you seem to have when you're cooking and stuff, and I think that's when people get, oh man, and they pop it loose and they take the battery out.
Yeah.
And then we forget to put it back in, Rick.
Not a good thing. That's why we teach people do not take the battery out, especially around holidays when kids get toys and they all take a 9-volt, and well, where are the 9 volts? They're up in the smoke detectors, but do not do that because you're absolutely right, Paul.
You're right. I've done that. I have done that. I can admit that.
And something with smoke detectors, these two that we have here, these have a 10-year battery in them. So a lot of the smoke detectors now are being made with these batteries in there that last 10 years. So smoke detectors in general last about 10 years, and then you're supposed to replace them. The sensors start to get old, and so it's great that they have these 10-year batteries because then you can just, once it gets to that age, you just take the whole unit down and replace it with a new unit. So.
And if I don't know the exact right place to put them in my home,
near the sleeping areas.
I can call my local fire jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
And you guys will come out when you get time.
Absolutely.
And you'll go through the house and say, okay, we should have one here.
Yep.
We should have one here and one here.
You got it.
Yeah.
Yep, everybody should do that. Every department in your jurisdiction, call them and they will be more than happy, I'm sure, to give you the best locations for those.
Sure, because you guys are always itching for something to do, aren't you?
Well, we want to keep everybody safe, so
all right.
Yes.
Rick is the fire marshal. You've been fire marshal for how long for Central Yavapai Fire?
It's actually, not to correct you, but Central Arizona Fire
Central
Medical
Arizona
Authority
Fire.
now.
I don't know why I keep calling it Yavapai, but Central Arizona, right?
Yeah.
Okay, got
Central
it.
Arizona Fire. So, it's going to be close to 7 years here soon at the end of the year. So, I was on the engine for about 15 years and then came in the fire marshal spot. And prior to that, I was a reserve firefighter for about a year and a half. And prior to that, I actually worked for the Forest Service for a couple seasons and was on the hot shot crew and worked on an engine crew up in Groom Creek. So
what does it take to be a fire marshal? I mean, it's not something you can just roll into and do. There's got to be a lot of training, and that's what brought this show into play.
Yeah.
Was that you had mentioned that you'd gone out for some arson investigation training. So how do you get to be a fire marshal?
Good question. Different departments do it different ways, but mainly to get into the fire prevention division, which includes the fire marshal, of course, is there are more specific classes that you may not take while you're on an engine because you're not running the emergency calls, the medical calls. You're not doing the technical rescue training and whatnot. But now you're looking into what we're going to talk some about today, which is the fire investigations. We deal a lot with business inspections to help keep the community safe. We go into the businesses and make sure that all their fire hazards are taken care of and that their life safety systems such as fire sprinkler, fire alarm. In restaurants you have hood extinguishing systems, and we make sure that those are all been serviced and up to par.
How often do you have to do something like that? Because, I mean, is there more than one of you
for
Central Arizona Fire?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah,
there is more than one. There has to be.
Yeah, we've got an assistant fire marshal, and we have 2 fire inspectors as well, and all of us are fire investigation certified, as well as, we've been through classes such as fire inspection classes. They've got state classes that you can take, a Fire Inspector 1 and Fire Inspector 2. Great classes to have. They teach you all about the inspections. We work hand in hand. It's like a Bible to us, is the fire code book, the International Fire Code.
Okay.
So every agency works out of the fire code, and we also have the Arizona State Fire Marshal's office. They cover the unincorporated areas where somebody may not have a fire department or a fire district or an authority, and they cover those areas. And so
we have those.
We do have those.
We have some of those
all
areas.
around the
I know
state.
we've done stories in the past about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So real important that we take, we learn how to work in that book, and there's classes for that as well. The fire investigation classes, there's a 2-year program here in the state through the IAAI, which is the International Association of Arson Investigators.
Okay.
And it's basically a week-long class every 6 months, and each class delves into a different part of being a fire investigator, and you go all the way through a mock court trial where you write a report. You start off, you learn about fire, how fire works, and then the second class you actually go and you do an investigation on a fire that is set up for the class, and then you write a report all the way up into going to court. So, and it's great. It's great. At the end of that, you basically, every class is a tested class. You get a certificate. There's also the National Fire Academy back in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and they've got a fire investigation class back there.
Is that the one you just did recently?
Yeah, they've got a lot of different classes, and so it's a great place. They cover they actually travel they cover your travel back there. They cover your class, and the main thing that you have to pay for, your department pays for, that sponsors you, is your food ticket.
Okay.
So it's $100 to $200 something dollars, depending on if you take a week class or a 2-week class. It's excellent training. You've got instructors from across the United States that have been in the fire service for all their careers, and now this is what they're doing, is they're teaching these classes, and so it's a great place to get some training. But you can go back there and take a class as well, and basically that class will be the same level as if you went through Arson 1 and 2 here in the state. So somebody could actually take a class back there, then come here and take the Arson 3 and 4 class through the International Association of Arson Investigators.
So is one of the things they do, just out of curiosity, is they say, okay, Rick, tomorrow's going to be your test. Tomorrow's your test day. Do they kind of go in and maybe pour some accelerants in a house and light it, and then not tell you what's going on and say, okay, there was a fire at this house, go in there and tell us what happened?
And that's exactly what they do. They have what's called burn cells, and they're set up, and they're created to, they look like a room that would be in an apartment or a home.
Okay.
So basically you have a door to that room, and then you've got furniture in there, and you have no idea what you're going to walk into. You don't know what they've done.
Fun.
They may have used some accelerants to start a fire. They may not have.
Okay, so was it arson or not arson is the question for Rick to solve.
Exactly.
So you got to go in and be a detective, an
Yes.
investigator.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So how was that?
Very interesting. It's another side of the fire service. When you're on the engine,
Sure.
you're here, you're being, basically reactive, is because people will call you when they need you for some kind of emergency.
Sure.
So in the fire prevention side, of course, you're trying to be proactive and trying to prevent the emergency from happening. So it's real interesting and how well that the two work together. As we know that no matter how hard you try, emergencies are going to happen.
Sure.
Accidents are going to happen. So yeah, coming into every scene is different, and so there's always that. You stand back before you approach it, and
you're gonna start getting into that right now. So let's take our first break, okay?
Sure.
Okay. Central Arizona Fire Marshal Rick Chase is in studio today. We're talking about arson investigation. Stick around, countywide. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes.
So, I just moved in with this family, and it's embarrassing. The little one, he likes to go outside and crawl around in the giant litter box. I don't know what he's doing. I mean, I was born and I knew how to use the litter box. Look at that. That's disgusting. Oh, poop already. You're making me nervous. Oh, okay, I can't look at this anymore. I really hope he grows out of this, for his sake.
planning the right amount of food is hard. The Guestimator makes it easy. Just tell it who's coming and what's for dinner. Then it tells you how much to make. And yes, it even plans for leftovers. Try it at SaveTheFood.com.
I got some Oxy after I hurt my neck. First, I took them to feel better. Then, I just kept taking them. I didn't know they'd be this addictive. I didn't know how far I'd go to get more.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth.
Hey guys, how are you today?
Good.
I'm here to talk about how with technology you can make amazing worlds. Come with me. My team and I bring the Halo world to life.
Is that you?
That is me. I wasn't a math genius and I knew nothing about coding. But you guys do. You guys have the power to change things.
I want your job.
I want you to have my job.
Sometimes, one moment changes everything. One song, one game, one adventure, one mission. For a child battling a critical illness, a wish come true can be a turning point. You can transform lives, one wish at a time. Support Make-A-Wish and help grant more life-changing wishes. Learn more at wish.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. Central Arizona Fire Marshal Rick Chase in studio. Today we're talking about arson investigation. So we talked about education, how you get to be a fire marshal, all that good stuff. Let's go ahead and paint a picture for the folks.
Sure.
Okay, so you were just mentioning before we went into the break is that you got to, when you show up, you got to take a step back and assess. So take us from Rick, we've got a fire at this house. Let's make it a house, okay?
Sure.
3-bedroom, 2-bath house, typical family home.
Okay.
There's been a fire.
Yeah, so basically when we arrive on scene, the first thing we do as an investigator is what I would do, and I'll tell you how I do it. I know everybody has their own systematic approach and way that they investigate, and the way I do it is I check in with the incident commander. First thing, you want to let them know you're on scene, find out what you have. Big thing too that's important on any scene is having the right PPEs, which is personal protective equipment. So you need to look at what you're wearing. You know, you're not going to want to come in shorts and flip-flops, of course, but you know, all investigators, we've got full set of turnouts. I know myself, I still can use an air pack. Not all investigators do. You know, the goal is to keep us out of the IDLH atmosphere, which means it's immediately dangerous to life and health. Wow. And that's what the firefighters are going into to put out the fire, because you've got all the smoke and toxic gases in there. And so, you know, one of the goals is, not trying to wave off your original question, but
no, you're fine. Go ahead.
You know, the crews are in there to put out the fire, and sometimes fire gets behind walls and in attics and whatnot, and the way to get there is you have to take the walls apart. You have to tear into the attic.
Sure.
As fire investigators, we need those things in place because we need to we look at the fire patterns, the burn patterns, and we can tell a lot from those as far as what direction the fire came from. So there's a lot of training that's involved with the two, and we can talk about that in a little bit. But so basically, I arrive on scene. So my goal is to see what we have, see how much of the house is involved in fire, and I start photographing. So I'll
while the fire is taking place.
While it's taking place.
Well, okay, while it's still going.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of the most important things is seeing what's going on. So that's why it's important as an investigator. You want to get there as quick as you can.
Okay.
I would love to get there every time the fire, right away when it starts, because every second fire is burning, it's getting larger and larger, and it's moving.
Sure.
So, you know, if you can get there early on when the fire is hopefully small, you can see exactly what part of the house it's burning in. So if it does burn the whole house down, you don't have to come at that time and go, wow, the whole house is burned down, where am I going to start?
Sure.
Well, when you're there early enough, you can see where the fire is burning, and that way you can focus on that area.
Exactly.
So the other big thing is too is witnesses. So as I'm coming in, I'll be looking around to see who's around. Nowadays, everybody has a camera. Everybody uses a cell phone. People see things, so I try to find out who saw what.
You start picking through the crowd?
I can, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And a lot of times by the time I get there, police is on scene a lot already. And so a lot of times they'll already have, hey, there's some people over here, there's some witnesses over here, the homeowners over here. And so that way I can get with them and come and meet those folks and then It depends, Paul. Sometimes we'll start with the interview process right away if people are going to be leaving the scene, because I want to get there. I want to talk with them before they leave.
Keep it's fresh in their
Absolutely,
heads, so you
fresh in
want it
their
right
heads.
away.
And then there may be a time where I will actually walk around the entire home and take photos. And so photographing the scene is very, very important, very vital to a fire report. You need photographs, and you need a lot of them. So I will start with photographing. I always start with the front of the home where I can capture the address and prove where I'm at. And then I'll start going around the entire residence, and I have a systematic approach how I get photos of the entire place.
Fire's out, now what do you do?
Fire's out, now I get there, I do the same thing. I'm going to find out who was there, who saw what, does anybody have photos? I interview the firefighters, the first ones on scene. I find out from them what was burning. Weather is a big thing too. Is it windy out? Is it rainy out? Is there a storm? Is it calm? Because that always helps. It aids in fire spread. So there's a lot I look at when I first get there.
Okay.
Always checking in with the incident commander. They'll update me on what they have, and then I'll always go around and get my exterior photos. Now we've got a house that's burned down. I'm not sure what happened. Any large scene, it's very important that fire investigators work in pairs. So I'll call out for support and get one of the other fire investigators in our division to come out and join me, and we work as a team. And a lot of times that's very, very important, because people may see things different. You may see something, they may see something.
Mm-hmm.
You work together. So to go back, I'll get my exterior photos, and then I'll start looking around without just jumping in. Start figuring out after you talk to people to see where you think that fire first originated. And again, a lot of that goes to burn patterns, witnesses, photos. I've had people with cell phones that'll look at their cell phone, they'll have a live video going of when that fire very first started. Helps me out tremendously.
Oh, sure, I bet.
Because if I can see the whole house standing and I see one room with flames coming out and now the whole house is down, guess where I'm going to start looking?
Sure, it makes sense.
So yeah, so there's a lot to look at, and so you just have to really slow things down. And then again, to go back to the PPEs, do I need to go in and get, most scenes you're going to be digging through to try to remove some of the burned items, and you've got insulation that comes down, you've got drywall pieces, trusses, all kinds of construction materials that are going to be down, covering the floor and items that you may need to get to.
What makes you think a fire is fishy? What kind of leads you to that point right there? We've got a couple minutes before we have to take in the break. So what kind of, when you get into there and you're looking around, what makes you say, this is unusual?
If something doesn't look right, and fire typically will burn up, fire will spread out as it burns.
Mm-hmm.
If it's somewhere where there is no ignition source at all, that can be very fishy.
Sockets,
sometimes we'll have a home that has no electricity, no gas, but yet you have a fire in there and nobody was in there. How does a fire start with none of that? Because electricity is a big cause of fires. So, we'll look at that. We'll look and see, we'll find out who was there, what did they have in that room, was there anything in that room, did neighbors see anything, do we smell anything, do we see something that's out of place? So we look at the whole scene like that, and then it kind of helps lead us into, could this be an accidental fire, could it be an arson fire? How deep do we need to dig? Do we need to call up somebody from the valley that has an arson detection dog that they can bring up? That these dogs are trained to smell accelerants, and we do use those every now and then.
We should probably have one up here. I bet they're expensive.
We are actually in the process of looking into that at our department. Yeah,
okay.
So we're just starting at the beginning of doing the research to see what it takes to get a dog up here. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. I didn't know there were arson investigation dogs.
Yeah.
And then we've got like 30 seconds before I have to take a break. If you do suspect arson, can you not take pieces of material where you think the arson may have started and sent that off for testing? Absolutely. And the fire investigator that we are an origin and cause, so we do not collect evidence, but every law enforcement agency, they do have detectives or officers that do collect evidence. Okay. And that's when we work as a team, when we get with the detectives or the officers, and we work together and we figure out what evidence we want to collect. And then we get them in cans and bags, and they get sent off to a testing lab that can test those. All right, let's take our break. Central Arizona Fire Marshal Rick Chase. We're talking about arson investigation today with him. This is Countywide. Stick around. We'll be back in just a couple minutes.
This is Bruce Morrow, Transportation Manager for Cottonwood Area Transit. Remember, we cover the entire Verde Valley and Sedona. Cottonwood Area Transit has you covered wherever you want to ride in the Verde Valley, all day, every day. Take Cottonwood Area Transit through Clarkdale, Verde Village, and from 26 locations in Cottonwood. With Verde Links, it's a quick and easy trip to Sedona every day. Don't forget our connectors to Camp Verde. Visit cottonwoodaz.gov for Cottonwood Area Transit and take a seat. Let's go ride.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
When I was your age, I was just like you, fascinated by stars. But now I get to search for life in the universe. And who knows, maybe life is looking for us too.
So we're like aliens to them?
Yeah. Does anyone want to be a scientist now?
I do.
Awesome. We need more girls in STEM.
Maybe we can find aliens.
Today is the beginning of a bright new future for this country.
Live a life on my knees.
The voters are coming.
When you are in space, you can't run down to the store to buy parts. You have to improvise with what you have on your mission. Making is when there is something new that was not in existence at the beginning of the day.
Okay.
It's an incredible sense of accomplishment when you have made something. That's why I make. Now I want to hear why you make.
Share your own Why I Make story today. Visit whyimake.org.
Welcome back to Countywide. We've got just a few minutes left of the program. Central Arizona Fire Marshal Rick Chase. We're talking about arson investigation today. So I also wanted to hit that sometimes it's not arson. Like I've heard, we've done stories with you, but there was an explosion. Let's explosion
Sure.
for instance.
Yeah, we had a house. Oh gosh, it was a pretty new home actually, and they had done a little bit of some folks had done some remodeling to it. The house was actually for sale, and the crews get called out there for an explosion. Well, what makes a house explode? Yeah,
That's got to make you kind of nervous too, right off the bat, right?
Oh yeah,
explosions.
Yeah, because we've seen over the course of the years, a couple of different types of explosions in homes, and of course, it's due to a gas leak of some sort. There's an ignition source in the house. It reaches just that right ignitable mixture, and then you will have a boom.
Boom.
Yeah, absolutely. So I went out there, and I was on call, and wanted to go see, what was this about? And so basically got there. The house was no furniture, nobody was in there. And there were some photos I actually sent over to you guys that had some of the drywall that was all blown out. It was on the floor. You could see the insulation behind the wall had a little bit of black to it, a little bit of charring from some smoke. And a couple of the studs in the walls actually had a little bit of charring. So what I do is I look at that just like I would a fire. And number one, it was a little bit behind the gas fireplace. So that tells me that there was a gas leak, a small gas leak, more than likely in some of the piping there. Sure. And you can see where the drywall blew out. You can see right where the charring was on the wood, and it just leads you right back to the ignition source and the point of origin.
Nice little path for you to follow, huh?
Nice little path. So that one was a little easier, and fortunately, it was pretty minor. But we've had ones where an entire home has literally exploded and walls have been blown out. We've seen one that has turned into a full-blown structure fire. So, yeah, anything could happen with explosions. So,
yeah, I guess that's why they call them accidents in most cases.
Absolutely.
We don't know when those accidents are going to happen.
No.
They just happen, but you never know.
No.
And one other question for you. We've got a minute left. Insurance companies. Now, we've done stories in the past. I'll try to make this quick, but sometimes it's hard to determine what was the cause of the fire, but insurance companies do come in. How closely do you work with them?
We actually work pretty closely with a lot of them. A lot of them, what they do is they hire a private investigator, the folks that do this for insurance companies.
Okay.
That investigator will in turn get in touch with us. Most of them come out of the Valley, out of the Phoenix area, and they'll call us, and we have a good working relationship with a lot of them, and so they'll come up and they'll say, I'm here to follow up on this. And they'll come out to the scenes, and a lot of times we will come to the scenes with those investigators. They see a ton more fires than we do. We don't get a lot of fires, and so we kind of like what we do in a team when we work together on an investigation. And we learn from each other and show them what we find. They will go over and see what they find, and then we'll compare. And very helpful. And that's one of the things that we always tell people, no matter what it is, if it's a business or a house, a car, a boat, whatever, call your insurance company right away. And they'll either get an adjuster or they'll hire a fire investigator, private investigator to come on.
All right, Rick,
Very important.
thank you so much. Fire Marshal Rick Chase from Central Arizona Fire. That's today's Countywide. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and we will talk to you again next time.
Thank you.